Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the TWSN Soccer Sit-Down Show. I'm Joe Camarota here, joined with my good friend Christian DeBlock. Max
Yep.
Marrero cannot make it today, but he still got us two to get you through the day. So let's start off with the FA Cup final, Christian.
Yeah,
What's
so
your
for anybody who doesn't know, we have a FA Cup final in just under 45 minutes. Leicester City versus Chelsea. It's going to be a good one. I believe fans will be at Wembley, so that's cool to see. We saw that with the Spurs City game in the Carabao Cup final. So lineups are out. We were just talking about it before. I think the biggest news for Leicester is certainly that James Maddison is not in the starting 11. They have Ayoze Perez playing as the number 10 behind Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy. And for Chelsea, they're playing a pretty strong side. No Pulisic, so for the American fans, it's kind of disappointing. But I'm sure he will make an impact off the bench. It's going to be a good game. I'm excited for it. It could go either way, but we'll see what happens. I don't know what you think, Joe.
Yeah, you know me about my opinion on Brendan Rodgers. I think he's someone who is kind of a choke artist. I don't think he'll be able to get it done. I think Tuchel has been great tactically this year, and I think he'll tactically outclass Rodgers. And I think Chelsea is a very good team, and I think they're just the better team overall. I mean, we're seeing it in real time. Leicester slip like they normally do, and we're seeing Chelsea just continue to play well, minus their game against Arsenal. But they, for some reason, can't beat Arsenal. I don't understand why, but that's just something they have. But I just think that they win this game.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to mention is, Kepa is back in the net for Chelsea. I mean, we obviously know his issues and his defensive errors over the last, 12 months. So even though we haven't seen him a lot, he's still certainly capable of, making a mistake. And if there is one guy in the Premier League, barring maybe Harry Kane and a couple other guys, if you want a striker who's going to, punish a goalie for his mistakes, it's going to be Jamie Vardy. So he could certainly, punish Chelsea if there are some defensive liabilities back at the end. Yeah, you do mention that they did beat or lose to Arsenal. I also agree. I don't really know how on earth that happens, especially at home too.
It
And that
happens
was
all the time. It happens all the time with them. It's like, I mean, even the draw last year, but it kind of felt like a loss for Chelsea when Conte slipped and Martinelli just went straight and scored a goal. I mean, it's just weird the way they play. I mean, all the Chelsea fans I knew were like, "We're going to lose this game," but you know what? Arteta in. So, works for
Yeah,
us.
and it's interesting because Arsenal took 6 points off them this season, and the first win was in December, and that kind of kickstarted Arsenal's season. Obviously, it didn't end up going much farther in terms of the table and or Europa League, but yeah, I mean, Chelsea are certainly susceptible to bad performances. I don't know if you see another one happen in the same week, but Leicester City, are coming off a good result as well. I mean, it was against the rotated Manchester United squad, um, who didn't really start anybody. I think they made 10 changes against Liverpool after the Leicester game. After the Leicester game. So I don't, I'm not too sure if Leicester has it in them to come up with another fantastic performance, but they do have a very good squad. I think Yuri Tielemans and Wilfred Ndidi in the middle are, very, very good, very high energy. And I think they, resemble a lot of what N'Golo Kante and Jorginho are. Obviously not on the same level, but, they do bring the same mentality almost. And I think, one guy in this lineup that could be interesting is Luke Thomas, who was the guy who scored the opener against United, scored a fantastic volley. And I think, if they can use their width on the outside, use the pace of Iheanacho and Vardy, because Iheanacho has been pretty good this season. I think we haven't really seen much out of him, prior to this season after leaving Manchester City, and now he's, playing almost every game. Ayoze Perez, I don't really, rate too much, but James Madison can still come off the bench and make an impact. It could go either way. I think it's going to be close, but with Chelsea's defensive structure, I think it's going to be hard to score against them. So if Leicester are open on the backside when they go on the counterattack, it certainly leaves the guys like Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech the ability to punish them and get 2 or 3 goals. So I don't know. It can go either way. I don't know. What do you think in terms of a scoreline?
I don't know about that, but one thing that's weird for me is you said Madison's missing from this game, and I mean, I remember specific. I mean, I haven't been able to catch a lot of Leicester games this season, but I remember specifically watching Leicester games last season when Madison did not play because he was injured. That team fell apart. That team legitimately fell apart when Madison got hurt. I don't understand why he's not playing today. I mean, he's on the bench, right? He's just not starting.
Yeah, he's in the bench. Yep.
So it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I think Rodgers is overthinking or something, or he thinks he's going to provide something off the bench. But I find that I feel like Havertz and Pulisic are better off the bench than a Madison would be. So I don't see. I think this is going to go 3-1 to Chelsea or 2-1 Chelsea. I mean, we know they have a great back line now under Tuchel. They've really transformed that defense, and I think they have goal scoring ability. So I just don't think Leicester's going to win this. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to play to secure top four instead of winning the FA Cup. I don't really know because that Madison decision is baffling.
Yeah, and I believe Madison didn't start against United, so I mean, maybe he doesn't seem to believe that maybe he believes Jose Perez is going to create something as a 10. That I mean, it's certainly possible, but I don't see it happening. But yeah, you mentioned the back line of Chelsea. I mean, Thiago Silva's in, Azpilicueta and Rudiger are in as the back three, so that's a strong side. And they have the width of Reece James and Marcus Alonso. No Ben Chilwell today, so yeah, I agree. I think Chelsea will get it done. I think they're going to win the FA Cup. I don't know if I'd go 3-1. I think honestly maybe even go 2-0. I think they could easily keep a clean sheet, unless Jamie Vardy finds himself in good spaces in the box and can get a shot or two off. But yeah, I completely agree. I think Chelsea just are too good right now. I mean, they did have the blip against Arsenal, but I think overall this team has been playing so hot, so at such a good level that they didn't hit with Lampard that Tuchel's got them playing well, and I think they would get it done today.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And let's move on now as we talked a little bit earlier about the top four race. Christian, who do you think is going to come out top four? I know Liverpool just got their win over Man United. They really got a boost and a new life basically for top four.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting because you have Leicester City and Chelsea who are going to play today, and then they're going to go play Tuesday as well. So that one's in the Premier League, and those two teams are two teams that Liverpool are chasing to get into that top four. So Liverpool, yeah, you just mentioned it. Liverpool, probably the biggest win of the season, I would say. Going to Old Trafford, I don't know when's the last time they beat Manchester United at Manchester United. But a 4-2 win. It was a very strong side from Liverpool, even a strong side from Manchester United, but they just didn't seem to have any motivation, energy, and life to go at the game. They did make it close. It was 3-2 thanks to a Marcus Rashford second goal, believe with like 20 minutes to go, and then Salah scored the fourth, and it was kind of over. So, yeah, it's an interesting one because for Liverpool, they have to play West Brom tomorrow. They have a game against Burnley with fans back in the stadium, which is an interesting dynamic. And then you play Crystal Palace to end the season. So 3 winnable games. But the issue with Liverpool over the last, even really the whole season is even if you think a team's going to win the game, they probably won't win it. So that's the issue. And that's the concern I have because, we haven't strung 5 wins in a row to get all season. And that's what we would need to do because we won, I believe, a cup. We beat 2 straight, I think. So you would have to go win 5 in a row. We haven't done it all season, especially with our defensive liabilities. I believe we can do it just because of the offensive firepower we have with Salah, Firmino, who scored twice, who Joe does not rate highly, if any of you know, and Diogo Jota, who scored as well at Old Trafford. So those 3 alone with Sadio Mane as well. So I think, Liverpool are capable of winning. I said this to Joe after we had beaten Manchester United earlier this week. I'm the biggest Spurs fan on Championship Sunday. And the only reason that is because they do play Leicester City next weekend. So that's an interesting one. I think, Liverpool can get to 69 points, which is their maximum. They need to win 3 straight. In terms of Chelsea and Leicester City dropping points, obviously they'll play each other. So somebody's going to drop or both will drop 2 points if there is a draw. And then I believe Chelsea plays Aston Villa. I assume Chelsea will get that done and win the game. So really, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think if any team is going to drop out of the top 4, it'd be Leicester City. And that would be thanks to a Spurs, draw or win on the final day. But what do you think? Because it's obviously going to be something that you watch as, Spurs are still fighting for, I believe they can still get Europa League, right? Or can they even get Champions League barring, a crazy run?
There's no way we get Champions League. I'm pretty sure we're out. We are at 56 points with 3 games left. So that would mean we could get – I'm terrible at math, so I'm not –
56? You're 65 then.
65, and that would be,
No.
yeah, it's not happening. So I guess we could get Europa. I don't think we're gonna get it, to be honest with you. Personally, a sneaky team for it, West Ham. I think they can, but I think Leicester's gonna get it just because I think they beat Spurs last week of the season. I think Spurs under Ryan Mason is not good. Spurs don't have any. They don't really care. I mean, you guys should check out my article I wrote this past week about what Spurs need to do a lot this summer, and that was only I touched on only a little bit because we know Daniel Levy isn't going to do too much this summer because he wants to, for some reason, keep the exact same squad from like 5 years ago. I don't really understand why. But Liverpool, I could see slipping up when they go away from home just because all the injuries. I think that back line is very suspect, especially away from home. West Ham has pretty easy games. They're at 58 points. I could see it. And then Leicester, I don't think they're going to beat Chelsea at all these next two games because I think Chelsea's going to come out completely. They're trying to get top four, so they need to win that. And obviously, it's a trophy. They're trying to win a trophy. It's really going to come down to that. I think the Leicester City versus Tottenham game at the end of the season. If Spurs can somehow win that game or get a draw, I think they could get West Ham in. But I think West Ham is going to be the team that finishes either fifth or fourth, and I think Chelsea finishes third.
Yeah, no, and I just looked at the fixtures as well. I mean, they play Brighton, West Brom, and Southampton. We're talking about West Ham here, and I think there's been a little bit of blip. I don't know if Declan Rice is back. That'd be a big boost if they can get him back in the midfield. He's been out for I think over a month now. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's gonna thanks to Liverpool's win at Old Trafford, it's gonna make it a very interesting last week of the season, especially now that we have maybe 3 or 4 teams that could get in. Yeah, I don't have the uttermost confidence in Spurs getting a result.
No.
I don't know if you play at home. I mean, that may play a role just because of the fans. I believe it isn't at home.
I'm pretty sure it is at home.
No, it's at the King Power.
Oh,
so
yes.
That'll help Leicester. But I mean, last year, maybe we could see something similar last season where Manchester United played Leicester to end the season and they didn't win. Leicester choked, of course, which that's kind of been their. I mean, you said Brendan Rodgers. I mean, that's kind of how it is with them. If they do it again,
right? He did that at Liverpool too. He choked.
You didn't need to remind me that. Yeah,
serial choke artist coming from a Tottenham fan. I'll tell you that man. He'd fit Tottenham real well. I hope we don't get him.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean that brings back a harsh memory, but yeah, no, I think it's certainly possible that West Ham gets in too because I mean, talk about Jesse Lingard, one player of the month, goal of the month too. I mean, the good dude is playing on an absolute level. He's probably going to be the Euros, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be fun to watch the next couple games. I mean, today we'll make a interesting preview to Tuesday because I assume both teams will go pretty hard and play near their best 11 on Tuesday as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams match up in terms of Chelsea and Leicester. But yeah, I think if one team were to drop out, whether you think it's maybe West Ham, I think it potentially could be Liverpool. I think if anybody were to drop out and let one of those two teams get in, it's certainly Leicester, not Chelsea. I think Chelsea will, beat Aston Villa. I think Grealish just came back. Ollie Watkins, I think, got suspended and now is back. But yeah, without Grealish, Villa aren't, the same side. So I think Chelsea will finish in the top 4, probably third. And as of right now, I would, lean towards Leicester. But if I were to pick one, I obviously have Liverpool. But yeah.
You know what's still crazy to me? The butterfly effect from that bad VAR call last season that gave Villa the extra points. I think it was against Sheffield United. And how that's completely.
Yeah, the first game of lockdown.
First
when
game
we came out of it.
Project Restart. They got an extra point or something like that because they disallowed a Sheffield United goal. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, the goalie fell into the net and they didn't. Nobody touched him. Like it shouldn't have been rescinded at all.
That doesn't happen. Villa goes down that year, and that who knows how much that changes this year too. Because I want to touch on real quick the 3 teams that are going down this year, which is Fulham, West Brom, and Sheffield United. And who knows what happens if Villa goes down? Because Villa is, where are they right now?
10, I think 11th or they're 10th or 11th
right now. But pushing top 4 while they had Grealish in the mix. Like it's crazy what happened. But I mean, are you surprised by any of these teams that went down this year? Fulham, West Brom, or Sheffield United?
Oof. Well, Sheffield. I mean, if any of you haven't seen this article, it was from a very, very long time ago. I think we're going to talk about it for a very long time from Joe. And he predicted, Sheffield United struggle. I didn't buy it. I think they were going to have a little bit of a blip. I thought, maybe they'll finish, 13th, 14th, near mid-table. They'd figure it out. I mean, I think Chris Wilder was a very good coach last season. He showed that. And they struggled this season. I mean, Aaron Ramsdale came in, and it wasn't the same level of Dean Henderson, who now seems to be the number one at Manchester United. I think De Gea is going to, either leave this summer, or he's just going to have to sit on the bench as the backup next season. And yeah, I mean, their goal scorers, they've struggled. I mean, David McGoldrick's been their best player, probably, but Ollie McBurdy wasn't good. Oliver Burke wasn't good. I mean, Ryan Brewster, I think me and Joe talked about it off the show a couple of days ago. I mean, Ryan Brewster, we got about $30 million for, and I don't think he scored a single goal or contributed to any goals. So you can go down the line of that team, and there's really no standout players, unfortunately, for Sheffield United. So yeah, before the season, I would have said no, but I mean, looking on the surface now, looking back on it, I mean, that's probably something credit to you for figuring that one out way before everybody else, because I mean, you got a lot of criticism on Twitter for that. In terms of the other two, West Brom, no. I think they just didn't have the same kind of team. I think one guy, and I mentioned this on my Twitter a couple of months ago, and I think Mateus Pereira is one guy that a lot of, top half of the table teams should be looking to snap up as a creative midfielder. Whether, I don't know who would be really interested. Maybe Arsenal can go get him. Now that probably Martin Odegaard's probably going to leave, go back to Real Madrid. I would assume so. At least maybe they can get him on a permanent. I'm not too sure. Really depends on their ownership and everything and how they want to spend their money. But yeah, no, I mean, West Brom isn't that good of a team. I didn't see Sam Allardyce figuring it out. I mean, obviously he has the great track record of getting teams that are underperforming to stay up in the Premier League, but obviously this one didn't happen. And I guess, yeah, Fulham, I guess, is the most surprising going into the season. I mean, is it really a surprise, though? Because last time we saw them up, they spent a ton of money, and it just all fell apart. I mean, this season, I think it was more interesting because they took the method of going out and getting guys on loan, which, sets them up to maybe not get back up next season just because, Adam Lookman's going back to Leipzig. They have another couple guys that they signed on loan. Josh Maja, who they got in January from Bordeaux. So yeah, it's interesting. I think that team. I mean, Scott Parker, I think, is a decent manager. Probably a little overrated, maybe because the English tax, I guess, is probably how I would put it. And a former player, he's been all around the place. So I think, yeah, it's unfortunate for Fulham. I genuinely enjoyed watching them play this season. I think they're of those three teams, probably the most expansive. So that's fun to watch. But yeah, I think if I had to say surprising going into the season, it'd be Sheffield United. But looking back on it, it's definitely Fulham. But you can rip Sheffield United and break it down for everybody.
Yeah. So so here's the thing. So yes, I did say I would not be surprised if Sheffield United went down. But in our preview article, I did not have Sheffield United going down. I did not. I had Aston Villa, West Brom, and Fulham. So I got two right, way off on Aston Villa. I apologize to all the Villa fans in the chat, but basically my issue with Sheffield was Dean Henderson. I thought carried them, and I thought they were my joke. I'd like to say, I'm not going to actually say it on here, but Christian knows what I like to call them, and I thought they were really carried by their fans. And that was something that, and I mean, we didn't know when fans were coming back. There was rumored that they would maybe come back in November. They did come back for like a game or two in December, but then they got shoved away again. And I really think Sheffield United lost that edge that they had with them. I mean, they what's the word for it? They thrive off of fans and they're being at
home. The
atmosphere. We saw it last year because they'd win a lot of games by like one goal and grind teams away. When you don't have that extra fan push, it hurts. And I think we really saw it this year. I mean, they had only 17 points. So
yeah, and I mean, like it looked. There was really no time in this season where I was like, maybe they can get themselves out of the ground. I think the only team, and you mentioned Aston Villa, who you had going down. I mean, I had Burnley going down, and that, it was maybe more just me hoping they were going down because I don't like their football at all. it's just so boring to
They're
watch. I mean,
inevitable, man. They are
huh?
legitimately inevitable. As much as we would all love to see Burnley go down, they're never going down. Sean
No.
Dyche he's just, I don't understand. He just knows what he has to do. Just
Yeah, and I
grind
think
teams down and annoy people.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because they play, their classic 4-4-2. You have James Tarkowski and Ben Mee, like the two rough riders at the back. You have, one creative guy in Dwight McNeil who has been mentioned to go to, some bigger teams. I don't know when, if he does move. And then you have, a bunch of strikers who pretty much play the same way. I mean, Jay Rodriguez, Ashley Barnes, and Chris Wood, who also are really just like bigger strikers who are just there to bring the ball down and like hold up play. Because really, Burnley only really score and are really dangerous on set pieces typically, at least
Check
throughout
that
their
one
track
game they
record.
played against Wolves where they put 4 past them.
Yeah, the one-off game, and I think that's that was me being a little more just hopeful that they were going to go down. I mean, Newcastle flirted with relegation. Brighton,
That's
who
Grant, baby.
Graham Potter, who Joe, like you
I
mentioned, if
want
you
him.
want to go,
That man, give Graham Potter, Mason Greenwood, and that team is mid-table, like top half.
oh yeah, because I know Joe doesn't particularly love XG and all of those advanced analytics, but every single game, Brighton's there to win a game or at least earn a point through XG because they create so much, and then Mope is not finishing. Danny Welbeck's not finishing. So
Mope,
yeah,
you're
give
cheap,
yourself
and I hope
one
Brighton
clear.
get relegated. You're cheap, and I hope Brighton get relegated.
I mean, I don't know if I'd ever see it happening with Graham Potter there, but
No.
yeah, it's an interesting one because I think Mope is just not a good finisher. I mean, nobody really. I think some people rate him, but not really on a full based idea. But yeah, if they got Mason Greenwood, which
I don't
will
know.
never happen, but
I don't know how. I really don't know if anyone rates him seriously. Like I rate him ironically, but unironically, I don't think anyone does. I only rate him because of
yeah,
that Arsenal stuff he pulled last year.
yeah, I remember a lot of Arsenal slander and criticism for Mope once he hurt Leno. If that was early after the lockdown.
Hey, they should have kept Emmy, but that's for another time.
That is true. Yes, they should have kept Emi Martinez. But yeah, no, I think the relegation battle was interesting this year just because Sheffield looked like they were going down from the beginning. And West Brom and Fulham like flirted with the idea of getting out, but Newcastle started to pick it up. And Brighton was there for bits and pieces, but have ended up getting away. But yeah, I think the three teams that were the most poor overall this season over a consistent 38 game season probably are the three that should go down. I don't think anybody else is like overly lucky to be out of and still in the division. I think it'll be
It's not
fun
really
to
close.
see.
Like a 10 point. There's a 10 point gap between 17th and 18th.
Yeah, it's not something. Fulham had some chances, and I think over the course of the season they had a lot of opportunities to hold, draws and even potential wins, and they weren't able to do it. So yeah, I think the three, it's going to be bad for Fulham. I think if any of those three teams are capable of getting back up, it's probably Sheffield United if they can hold on to a lot of the.
Fulham's going to be back up next in 2
Well,
seasons.
The only issue I have with Fulham is they're going to lose Areola, who is one of their best players. I think Lookman's going to go back to Leipzig, like I mentioned before. Josh Madge, the striker, is going back to Bordeaux. So the only issue I have with that, and it's potentially possible. If Mitrovic and guys like them can, perform at the championship level, they can easily get back. Because that core got them there. But yeah, I think it's interesting. It was interesting from the beginning. Definitely the biggest storyline was Sheffield United. Nobody saw it coming. You were one of the first to it, so we'll sing your praises for a long, long time on that one. But
yeah, I'm not gonna let you guys forget. I'm not gonna let those guys on Twitter forget either. Freaking calling me like they said it was written like an 8-year-old. Yeah, okay. Have fun in the championship, bozos.
Yeah, no, I still, me and Joe have been friends for a long time, as you can tell by our banter on this. But yeah, it was fun to see his reaction to the criticism he got on Twitter.
Well, I was
because
so confused. I'm like, damn, you can disagree, but don't attack me. It'd be like, no, I disagree. People were mean. They're like hashtag bookmarked. Yeah, okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
you were the one that was supposed to bookmark them because now they're
Hey,
upset that their
Jake did
team's
that.
out.
Jake did that.
Yeah, so that was definitely the most surprising of them all. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if any of those teams can get back up in the near future.
And then you saw Norwich is coming back up too.
Yeah, Norwich is an interesting one.
I think they stay up next year. I think they have a good team. I think losing Skip back to Spurs is going to hurt, but I still think they have a very good team. I think they'll be able to stay up. I like them a lot. So
Yeah, I agree. I think Timo, it's Pookie having Pookie back in the Premier League is gonna be fun.
he doesn't
Because I
love
think his
Pookie, man.
first,
His
what'd you say?
first month was crazy.
Yeah, he
Didn't
won Player of the
Player of
Month.
the month or something?
Yeah.
I've never seen that. Like, yo, do you remember when they beat Man City?
Yep. I was just gonna mention that. That was literally the first. That was like the second game of the season, and
No,
they
it
beat
wasn't
him
that
at
early.
home.
It wasn't that early. I think it was in
Really?
October. I'm pretty sure it was
Maybe.
in October.
Either way, I mean, it was an early game in the season, and they, surprised everybody by doing that. And we thought, maybe that's going to jumpstart them to stay in the division, and obviously didn't happen. I think the one guy I wanted to mention that they had the last time they were up was Ben Godfrey, who has played everywhere along the back line for Edmonton. He's really, really, really good. So, when they do come back, I think the defensive liabilities is what's going to concern me. But I mean, talk about their offense. I mean, Todd Cantwell's a very creative player. Yeah, you mentioned Chipper in the comments, Max Aarons. I mean, he's highly rated. There was links to Bayern at one point
Even to
for
us.
him.
I remember
Which then,
he was linked to Spurs too. They were like, "We're gonna
yeah,
get him." I was like, "I don't
he
want that
was
guy."
linked to a lot of good teams.
But I don't think they're gonna move him this year. Now that they're going up, so I doubt
No,
he will.
I assume he will stay. But they didn't
I feel
lose
like
too
they
many
didn't
guys.
lose that. I feel like they didn't lose that many people from when they went
Yeah,
down.
it
I
was
think that
really
really
Ben
helped them.
Godfrey and Jamal Lewis, I think, are the only two I can come to the top of my head who went to Newcastle, who was the left back. But I mean, like you mentioned, they'll lose Oliver Skip, who's been very good this season. I mean, you would know more. I'm not too.
Ali Skip has been great, man. He's been great for them. Like apparently they're just trying to get him signing him permanent. Like no, that's our guy, man. That's ours.
Yeah, and then they have Buendia, who was once again like a lot of these other players were linked to bigger clubs, never left, and now he's still there. So that'll be fun. I do agree. I think if they can, figure out and make some quality signings, some low underrated signings that are going to be really effective for them, yeah, I think they'll stay up too. I think they are certainly capable of it.
I mean,
But go ahead.
it feels like every year there's one championship team that stays up for a year. It feels like it's always two teams go right back down and one team will stay up.
Yeah, I think I can't remember the last time two teams stayed up or none of them. I think almost most of the time you see one stay up, two go down. I would have to go back and look at it, but yeah, no, it seems to be a common theme. I mean, I would assume. I mean, we don't know obviously because I think Watford's the other one that went up. That it's locked in to get in, and then obviously you have the playoffs. So there's a lot of different teams that can get in. But yeah, it's interesting because you see some teams spend too much money, spend not enough, and not make the right moves. And I think that's what we saw with like Fulham. Fulham did it two different ways. So the first time they spent way too much money, wasn't effective. This time they went with the loan idea where they got a lot of guys on loan for just one season to try to stay up, and it obviously didn't work either. So yeah, I mean Norwich, as long as they can keep their core and guys like Pookie, Cantwell, Buendia, they can all perform next season. I think you're right. I think they'll definitely be capable of finishing comfortably mid-table, in the lower half of the table for sure, probably somewhere like that.
Yeah. Another thing I was gonna bring up now that I don't know why I just lost my train of thought though. Oh damn it! I really lost my train of thought of what I was gonna bring up, man. I'm perplexed. Oh, now I remember. We need Pookie to sustain his ability. Because if we remember, he was great for like 2-3 months, and then he just fell off a cliff, and he was nowhere to be found. If Norwich wants to stay up, they're going to need him to be consistent.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, that's like going back on what you said. I mean, they beat Manchester City, and obviously Manchester City are completely different right now compared to what they were, a month or a year and a half ago, or even 2 years ago. Now that we're almost to that point now, I mean, their defensive liabilities were there. If you look at that game, I mean, they were so stretched defensively. I mean, I think at that point they were starting Otamendi still at the back, and I mean now you have Ruben Diaz and John Stones, who are two of the best center backs right now. Is certainly the best tandem at the moment. in the world. So yeah, that team and Norwich were a fun team to watch. Going back on that, I mean, typically you and me support teams that are usually finishing near European spots, or if in European spots. I typically enjoy teams that are very expansive that come up, and Norwich is one of them. So I think under Daniel Farka, who's still there, I think it'll be fun to watch. If Pookie can perform and score 15 to 20 goals, I would probably say that's where you're going to look for him. They probably do need a backup striker, I would say, just to help him, because that was one of their issues when they were here. I think they just didn't have any depth at all. So if Pookie wasn't performing, like you mentioned, which seemed to drop off after, October, November, they didn't have anything else. So they'd need, some other firepower, whether it's just a loan. You can go get another, striker that can score 10 goals on loan for a season just to stay up in the division. So yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think Pookie will need to be at a very high level in order to, keep them up.
Now, I would like to say this, how I said earlier, we haven't really seen a lot of times in a row where championship teams stay up, like all three go down, I should say. I think this might be the year it happens, and here's why. We know with the pandemic how much it's impacted lower league sides. Championship is still technically a lower league side. They don't have the money that they get from Premier League sponsorships and stuff. I don't know how it's going to work after a whole year in a pandemic, how much money these teams are going to have to be able to spend on transfers and make improvements. And I think that's really going to hurt this season.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think money's always going to be a concern right now, and I think that's why I would probably take the route of going getting on guys on loan, just having to pay their wages, and taking that route. And I think that could be effective for a couple of these teams who come up, depending on who the third one is. I think Watford, have their own issues, but there are some very good talent in that team. I mean, Ismail Assar is a fantastic, electrifying winger who, can provide a lot of danger off the wing. So they have a lot of bright spots as well. But yeah, no, I think that's going to be an interesting thing we see this summer. How much, that's why, I mean, a couple weeks ago we were talking about, is Harry Kane potentially going to leave the Spurs, and all these, high names. How many teams really have money to spend? And we're talking about, I mean, for that example, I mean, those are the biggest teams in the world. How you're mentioning, I mean, Norwich and Watford, I mean, those are really small clubs who aren't going to have anywhere near the same money as Real Madrid or PSG. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing this summer, is not only how many people leave, but how much are people leaving in terms of money. Yeah, and I think, I mean, of the teams that are staying up, there are certainly some teams that if they don't, figure a way to get more depth in their team, I think I'm a little worried. I think Newcastle is definitely one of those. I mean, they've been terrible all season. Without Callum Wilson and St. Maxime, I mean, I don't know where they would be.
Joe Willock.
But he's going to leave.
Yeah, but he's been huge this season. I'd say if I was Newcastle, I'd explore getting him on a transfer or seeing if he could take another year on a loan.
And I think the loan option is probably, pretty likely. I don't know if Arsenal's ready to use him. I mean, they probably should be, because I mean, that team is terrible right now. So, I mean, to be blunt with you, I mean,
yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yeah, and I think they have a lot of flaws. I think the midfield, I mean, Thomas Partey, maybe Joe Willock could play alongside, Thomas Partey. That might be an option. I think I like Joe Willock more than, Danny Ceballos, and even Granit Xhaka, who's – so I think that would be –
I'm a Granit Xhaka supporter. I think
he's got some quality to him, but I mean, I think Joe Willock, we've seen when he gets consistent game time is, very effective, especially going forward. I mean, he's dangerous making those deep line runs from midfield. But yeah, no, I think there's a couple teams that are definitely susceptible to going down next season. You are right, though. I think they could all three go down, but I mean, other than, Newcastle off the top of my head that I'm really worried about. I mean, Burnley, I'm always going to say, but they're going to figure it out.
I think Brighton, because unless they get a loan, because I think Potter's leaving. I hope he leaves this summer, because I want him at Spurs. I think without Potter, I think that team's in big, big trouble.
Oh, no. That's also, I can agree on that one, because he provides so much.
That they're less expensive and they sit back more and they just prevent goals from coming in. But they don't
and I think they're in desperate need for a goal scorer if they want to stay up, because they have a lot of creative players. They have a lot of young talent. I mean, Lewis Dunk, Lamptey on the wing is one of those young right backs who people rate very highly. Ben White, who they got back this season off the loan. So there's a list of players in that team that's very highly talented. But yeah, if they lose Graham Potter, they are definitely in some trouble. But yeah, it'll be an interesting for next season to see how the newly promoted sides are. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're talking about next year, let's talk about a stopgap between next year, which is Euros 2020/2021. It's going to be a big year for teams. I mean, I'm a supporter of Italy, so as a man with Italian heritage, I hope they win it all. I have my doubts, but Moise Keane masterclass over. I don't know if he'll even play, but I hope so. He's my favorite player, so hopefully he does well. I think England obviously shows some potential, but I think overall, I think it's going to be Portugal or France gonna get it over the line at the end.
Yeah, I think the only other team that I would give a potential shout to, and I only say this just because they have a lot of firepower, and with Lukaku and Kevin De Bruyne playing at a high level, even without Eden Hazard, who's been, I mean, basically mediocre and very very irrelevant over the last ever since he got to Real Madrid. I would say Belgium has a puncher's chance. One of those outside teams that have a shot. Italy's an interesting one too because I mean they're coming towards the end of their older regime with Chiellini, Buffon, all those guys. I don't know how many of those guys are even in the squad anymore, but they're an older team.
I think they're starting Donnarumma, I would assume.
Donnarumma's there. So I mean, but they still seem to be a little bit of an older team with some younger talent mixed in there. But yeah, I completely agree. I think Portugal is set to not only be really relevant now, but relevant for a long time too. I mean, even when Ronaldo does end up retiring from international football to begin with, I mean, you can go down the line. I mean, this team this country has so many good players. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, João Felix, Diego Jota, Ruben Diaz. So they are set not only in the defense, the midfield, and the attack. And you can go down the line. I mean, that team has so much talent. But France, I completely agree with. I mean, Kylian Mbappe. I mean, even guys like Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante. I mean, you can go down the line. So, yeah, I think it's going to be your normal teams that are getting deep into the tournament. I think. I mean, it's unfortunate for
Spain. I've seen shots for Spain.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think one storyline we're going to get to watch is that not only just them, but Germany as well with Joachim Low, who's going to get his last tournament before Hansi Flick comes in from Bayern. And I think Germany's not the most talented team, and I think they have their issues, but I mean they're capable. But I think it's going to be a different tournament just because it's either going to be no fans or very limited amount.
There's going to be fans. I think it's taking place in England. I think most of it.
Okay.
I know for a fact it's going to be a little bit in Wembley, and I know they're going to be opening up because I know it's right when lockdown ends in England, so it should be
right because
see what happens.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think as of right now, I'd probably lean towards France winning it all. But I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, there's so many different teams that'll make it interesting. And you always see, one or two teams that are favored to get deep into the tournament that falter early, make a mistake, and they end up falling out of the tournament way earlier than anybody expects. I think there's certainly teams that can do that. I mean, personally, as somebody who has Dutch heritage, it's unfortunate to see Virgil van Dijk not be in the squad, but it does make sense.
Hey, you guys got Stevie Bergland. Enjoy that guy. What is it? 1 goal, 1 assist all season, 2 assists all season. Enjoy him.
He had such a great start to his Spurs career.
He has 2 goals. I'm pretty sure he has 2 goals in his Spurs career, and they're both against Manchester clubs.
I do remember the one against Manchester City last season. Did he score against United too?
Yeah, he just ran in a straight line. So he just runs in a straight line, and somehow Maguire just gets turned around because I don't know. Maguire's been great this year, but last year Maguire had a lot of gas, and he just got turned around by Stevie running in a straight line, and he just kicked it straight at De Gea, and De Gea just missed it.
I mean, that's no surprise from De Gea's end, but yeah, I mean, the Netherlands probably don't have enough. I just don't see them having enough attacking talent to do anything. They do have a lot of good midfielders in Gini Wijnaldum and Frankie de Jong. But, I mean, they're going to be relying on Memphis Depay, Malin, who's at PSV looking to move to a lot of bigger clubs. some other guys. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch. It'll be nice to have some soccer in the summer, along with all the stuff with the American national team,
Question.
which we can go ahead.
Quick question. This is just before I forget, because I'm going to forget this. It's not necessarily soccer related, but how do you get Dutch from Holland / the Netherlands? Like you see English, the English, France, the French, Italian, Italy, Italians. Where does Dutch come from? Like that has no relation to Netherlands or Holland.
Well, first of all, this is interesting because I don't think anybody, except if anybody's watching this, or even if you watch it back, I mean, we're talking about heritage over here on a soccer show. I don't know, man. That's interesting because I've never thought of it like that. Because you would have just assumed like they'll just take it off of either Netherlands or Holland and make it something similar.
Germans.
Yeah, that's
Hollands.
interesting.
Not the
If anybody in the comments wants to say something in the comments below about this, that'll be interesting.
I'm
but
actually
yeah,
interested. So if anyone knows the answer to this, get back to me because I've been perplexed for this my entire life. I've never understood how the Netherlands and Holland you get Dutch. I just don't understand it. Maybe I'll do some research after this, but
you'll get back to us next week. But
yeah, I will actually. I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna come on the show and I'm gonna give everyone a history lesson on how this happened. But back to soccer. Since we really covered mostly the EPL here, how do you feel about England's chances this year? Because I could personally see them getting bounced early on.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of attacking talent and even in talent in the midfield too. But once again, defensively and the goalkeeper situation's the thing that concerns me the most. I think, it depends on the matchups because I think a lot of it depends on like who they're going up against. But I could see them certainly getting deep into the tournament, but also, like I mentioned before, there usually is a team or two that falls out very early. They could be it as well. But I mean, they have so many different options offensively. I mean, you have Jadon Sancho, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Phil Foden. I mean, the list goes on. You can name so many different guys, Jack Grealish, James Madison. I mean, the list goes on. So I think they are set in the midfield and the attack. It all comes down to guys like John Stones, Kyle Walker, the debate of whether or not they bring Trent Alexander-Arnold to the Euros and what they do at that right back position. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. If they're going to fall out, it'll be because of their defensive liabilities. But they are certainly capable either going early exit to the tournament or a deep run. It could go either way.
Yeah, and I think the issue is going to be Southgate personally. I mean, I've not seen one praise of Southgate since 2018. Like I've only seen people hate him. And I think the issue is that they don't really have a left back. I mean, I guess Chilwell now, but for a while, I think there was one time recently where they just had I looked at the team, I'm like, where's their left back? They didn't have a single left back on their roster. It was very confusing. So I mean,
and they have Luke Shaw as well.
Yeah, Shaw's been great this year. I forgot about him. He's been great this year.
Yeah, he's gone underrated just because usually talk about a lot of the attacking talent from United, and he has been consistent as anything. I mean, they brought Alex Telles, and we all thought he was going to come in and be their starter, and Alex Telles basically can't get on the field because Luke Shaw's consistently providing so much defensively and even in the attack too.
I forgot Alex Telles existed, man. That brings me back to when they were trying to get Sergio Reguilon, and then they settled for Telles, and everyone's like, Telles is great. He's going to finally get Luke Shaw out of here. And then Luke Shaw just said, no, screw you guys. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to be great. Good for Luke Shaw, man. Good for Luke Shaw.
Credit to him, yeah.
That'll be it for us today. Thank you for joining us. Again, if you figure out how Holland became the Dutch or the Netherlands came to the Dutch, let me know. Let me know. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week, likely with Max Marrero. So we missed him today. But once again, just thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you guys.